Pretty cool, huh? I got this from a toy store by the name of Children's Palace in the 1980s. I think this thing on the back is copyright 1979. I thought this was the coolest thing at the time. That's why I purchased it or had my dad purchase it or whatever happened. But pretty sure I've showcased this on the channel before. Don't know why. I don't know what video that would have been. But this is a really cool generic Wolfman rubber figure that I couldn't do this movie review without showcasing this fella. Look at how cool and rubbery he is. I just thought at the time, and still do, this was the coolest is the coolest little generic rubber Wolfman. Welcome, huge movie fanatic Nate, stopping on by. This time I'm coming your way to review the most recent Wolfman movie that came out this year in 2025 by the name of Wolfman. So when this trailer materialized, I was relatively interested, and then when I found out it was from the director of was it from 2018 or 2019 or 2020? I'm not exactly sure, but the most recent release, or the 21st century reimagining of The Invisible Man. That movie, which I don't think I talked about or reviewed on my channel, I may have reviewed it, is so much to make videos on. Sometimes things fall between the cracks, but if I never reviewed The Invisible Man from 2020 or 2019, whenever the hell it was from, the one with that kind of unattractive woman who was in a relationship with this billionaire, like why would this billionaire be so obsessive about this not so attractive woman? But that's a whole other topic. But the movie, the kind of 21st century take, tech take on the H.G. Wells story in the 1933 original film from Universal, I thought was a really interesting, reimagining of The Invisible Man. So when I found out that guy did the Wolf, his next film is The Wolfman, what's he going to do next? Creature from the Black Lagoon? Fingers crossed, let's hope so. But when he came out with Wolfman, I was really interested. And this is a title, it takes a lot to get me to drag me to a movie theater, so I didn't bother with this in the movie theater. But as you guys may or may not know, if you've been watching some of my recent videos, you might know that I've been doing a little iTunes/Apple TV movie and TV show purchases this year. And I think in April, this went on sale for $10 and I was going to get it, but then I didn't. Then it went back up to 20 and I'm like, God damn it, I should have got it. But then weeks later, it went back down to $10 on iTunes/Apple TV for purchase. And I'm like, you know what, this has to be good enough to blind buy, digitally for $10. And I just went for it. Me and Beth watched it. I don't think she was as impressed with it as I was. I just like with the Invisible Man movie he did, I thought that cinematically, this movie is extremely, extremely well done. And I don't know who this guy is or what he did before Invisible Man. He's almost kind of like a, on the same tier with like whatever that guy is who did Nope and Us and Get Out and stuff. Like, stylistically, I think he's one of the best guys working in movies out there. And one thing I will say about, Wolfman 2025 is right off the bat, stylistically, like cinematically, this movie, that you're in good hands as far as like the filmmaker, the craftsman of this movie. And it's a slower moving kind of a character kind of a movie that I thought was done relatively well. And one thing about the trailer that I will say is like the trailer did this great marketing gimmick. I don't know if this was the intention of the trailer, but the trailer it starts with basically them. If you've seen the trailer, I don't want to spoil the trailer. I don't know if you can spoil the trailer because the trailer is a trailer. The trailer starts with these characters with their moving van or moving truck stuck in a tree, and I gotta tell you, the trailer really made me want to watch the movie and find out how the fuck does a moving vehicle, a big moving truck, get stuck up in a tree. And so I think that was a genius marketing device of Universal or whoever decided, whoever cut the trailer, is that it worked. It made me want to find out how the hell a truck gets in a tree. Well, having, seen the movie now a couple times, I've seen it twice, once with Beth and once on my own. I now know how the moving truck gets into the tree, and I would urge you to watch the movie yourself to find that out for yourself. But the movie starts, I'm not going to do a beat by beat, but with a very, really, I really love how the movie starts with, this kid, the younger version of the guy who will, go on to be the Wolfman in the movie. But this is, I want to say 96 or something, mid 90s. And he's a kid, he's got kind of this military prepper kind of, more drill sergeant dad who takes him hunting and tries to teach him safety in the woods and this and that. And this movie takes place under this, it's supposed to be, I don't know where it's filmed, but it's supposed to be frickin' what the hell, shit, I had it on my, I had it on my tip of my tongue. Oh yeah, Oregon. I think this movie's supposed to take place in the woods, deep woods of Oregon, and I don't know if it's really filmed there or not, but wherever, regardless of where it's filmed, it's a very beautiful woods, lush backdrop with this great scenery that plays a part in the beginning and the end of the film. But right up my alley, takes place in this lush, green forest woodage area. In the opening of the movie, I didn't expect, I guess I'm kind of spoiling this, oh boy, but like I said, it takes place in the mid-90s when the main character is a kid and got the drill sergeant dad in their run-in with a wolfman. And like I say, the opening of this movie, in my opinion, is very wonderfully done. And like I say, early on in this film, early on, that cinematically you're in good hands with this director guy, and he just, he crafts all the scenes just so wonderfully well. And same can be said for the opening of this movie, and they're, coming, they're running into this wolfman. And one thing I do want to say is at the beginning of before the movie even starts, is this spiel about, how the original Wolfman from, what was it, 1941 or whatever, with, the first movie called Wolfman. Like, there's a movie that the Universal did in the 30s, I want to say early 30s, which was The Werewolf of London, which I actually enjoy more than the Lon Chaney Wolfman movie. So it's, the Wolfman wasn't the first werewolf movie that Universal did, but I'm talking about in regards to the title, Wolfman. So what the hell was I saying? Oh yeah. In regard, the Wolfman movies, whether it's Wolfman of London or Wolfman from 1941, has always generally been, and even like American Werewolf in London, those movies have always had this more mystical kind of, in regards to being, something to do with the full moon and this kind of stuff. Where one thing that the thing I'm probably the least keen on in this movie is the thing that's kind of said in words at the beginning of the movie. That this movie takes a complete, 21st century approach to the werewolf, and it has nothing to do with the moon. As a matter of fact, I don't think there's a single shot of the moon, whether it's full, whether it's half moon or any moon. I think it was very intentional of the director not to even show a shot of the moon, because it was his way of saying, possibly, maybe I'm reading more into it than is there, but possibly is his way of saying that this isn't about the full moon. That my version of Wolfman is about a virus, of course, and now, and being in 2025, it has nothing to do with the moon or whatever, but it still does have to do with being, bitten or scratched by another wolfman. But I'm pretty sure the word virus is on the screen in the opening, whatever, bitten that and this and that, over the beautiful shot of the property that's supposed to reside there in Oregon or whatever. But that's, it's not a big, huge deal, because, the movie's still the same. But as I was watching it, especially the second time, I was kind of, I thought, you can't just put one shot of a full moon in there, just kind of a wink to the, the original Wolfman and so many of the werewolf movies of the past. And one thing I will say that I've noticed in some of, my first viewing and also second, is a couple potential winks to the original Wolfman from 1941. I want to say the moving truck which I can only assume is a brand of moving truck they invented for the film, I think was established in 1941, which might have been a little bit of a wink to the original Wolfman from 1941. Also, that the Wolfman character does get his ankle caught in an animal trap in some point in this movie, which is, obviously probably a deliberate wink to the Wolfman film, Lon Chaney Jr. one from 1941. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter if it happened because of the full moon or not. I mean, he still becomes a Wolfman because of being scratched by another Wolfman. So it's kind of the same thing, ironically, but the movie just, instead of having to do with the moon, full moon, it's, just whatever is passed on through the, into the blood through the scratch or whatever. So I will say that the opening scene with, him being a younger kid and his drill sergeant dad really did lay the groundwork wonderfully for the film. Cut to present day, and I can't remember if it said, 30 years later, or my pet peeve of present day, I can't remember, but it does cut to, 30 years later in the mid-2020s or whatever, and, I can't remember what the hell city they're in. It doesn't really matter. They're living in a big city, and, the guy's an adult, got a wife and this daughter, and I gotta say, even in the trailer, like, I don't know oh my God, I'm trying to try not to harp on it too much, but his wife, like, what they did to this actress who plays his wife, I don't understand. She actually looks more scary than, like, the Wolfman, and any of the Wolfman, creatures ever look in this movie. I don't understand what the purpose of having this woman, why they decided to have her, like, I don't know if that's her natural hair color, but with that curly hair and just oh my God, like, why? Because when I watched the trailer, I thought the scary looking woman was the daughter, but then she's holding the hand of a younger girl, and I'm like, oh, that's the daughter? Like, this woman, and I don't know how old this woman is or whatever, but I don't know if she's even old enough to have that old of a daughter or whatever. But one thing I want to say and just get out of the way is, why the hell does, the wife and, slash mom of this movie have to look the way she does? It's just like, that's something that's very, strange to me. But I guess it shouldn't be surprising, because it's kind of the trend now of, like, used to be like beautiful women in movies, and now, like, I don't think this woman would even look that bad normally. Like, she probably looked better waking up, after, drinking the whole day the day before. She probably looked better waking up the next morning and just like just slithering out of bed and just went like this. Like, she probably looked better than she does in this whole movie. I don't understand. I guess I've already said it, I'm just repeating myself, but why the hell she's got to look the way she does in this movie? Like, yeah, so I guess I'll say that and leave it. But it's kind of interesting how I don't know why, well, there's a character arc which I may or may not, spoil or whatever. You'll probably be able to get the gist of it, maybe not, or whatever, as I talk about the movie, but it's revealed very early on that the dad has a much better bond with the daughter than the daughter, the daughter and the mother almost have no connection at all, which is a theme that kind of plays throughout the course of the movie. But they quickly, as we meet our, Wolfman to be character and his family, he quickly finds out that his dad was pronounced dead by Oregon or whatever, in Oregon, and sent him the whatever paperwork about that, and the keys to the place. It's still the same beautiful kind of farm location, and he's like, well, let's go take a trip, with the, you wife and you daughter, we'll all three go take a trip and clean out the house or whatever, and it'll be a good, perfect time to get away and this and that and stuff. And they agree to do so, and so that's the premise of the movie, and they go there, and like I say, there's some really, and like I say, I can't stress it enough, you're in really good hands cinematically. There's some really tense moments where, like, they first show up, and in this part of Oregon, there's it's hunting, whatever they call them, hunting house in the tree, or not in the tree, but high up, a hunting, I'm not a hunting enthusiast, so I don't know what it's called, but just this platform built high off the ground is not too uncommon of a sight, and a guy to be up there with a rifle or whatever. But there's some tense moments, quietly tense moments throughout this movie, and they come across someone as they're trying to, the guy probably hadn't been there for 30 years and he's trying to find the property and stuff, and stuff ends up going south, and I won't spoil how the moving truck ends up in the tree, but it does. And the whole movie, from then on is basically just this evening of Dad becoming more and more, after being scratched by a wolf man, another wolf man that prowls the Oregon forests or whatever by his property. He now falls in, and slowly becomes Wolfman. And one thing you note, if you've seen the trailer, you know that there's this cinematic way of showing to the viewer of like his point of view, where it's like, you go from the mother or the daughter's point of view over to what he sees and what he hears. And when they're speaking English, he hears gibberish. So as he becomes very much with like this director's take on Invisible Man and changing it in from a chemical thing of the original story and the original film from the early 30s into a technological Invisible Man in the 21st century. And this version of Wolfman, we're able to show how or what the changing into the Wolfman is like from the Wolfman's perspective, which is English becomes just gobbledygook gibberish, and his vision and hearing gets heightened, but we get to experience it from his point of view visually, which is interesting. And I can't remember how many times they'd show us that. It's at least twice. I can't imagine they do it 3 times, but maybe they only need to do it once. What's interesting is the version that's in the trailer of them, the wife in the basement, and they're both standing there and the camera goes from one side to the other. Like, that's not in the movie, which is interesting. Maybe they did do it more than they did in the movie, and they just realized, well, we can't do this 3 or 4 times. It just gets redundant. So the version of that, that's in the trailer isn't in the movie, but there's other versions. There might be one of it happening with him and his wife, a conversation, and one with him and his daughter. But I did find that aspect of putting you in, putting the viewer in his, his shoes, as it were, or hairy feet, to be able to see what he, experience what he hears and sees, as he transitions and stuff is pretty interesting. One thing I thought was kind of bogus early on is as a, kind of like if you've seen the Jack Nicholson film from the mid-90s with Michelle Pfeiffer by the name of Wolf, it's very similar as his hearing gets better. Kind of a bogus scene where early on he thinks he hears some clunking and hammering, like someone's trying to, bust into the house in the upstairs bedroom or something. He goes up there to hearing all this clunking and rattling, like it's some window shutter clacking or someone trying to break in upstairs. He goes upstairs and slowly goes upstairs and creeps in the room and opens the closet to see it's a spider walking on the wall, all this banging. And it's just like, you know what? Yeah, initially that reveal was cool, but it's just like, well, how come, the footsteps of you going up, like, why is the spider walking around so loud, but everything else, like you walking around, or, your daughter or your wife breathing, or, them farting, like, why is just the spider's footsteps so loud, but louder than your own footsteps going up, like when you're hammering, freaking pieces of, in Night of the Living Dead, furniture onto the windows, or they're trying to secure the front door, like, you can hammer stuff and it's not, doesn't like, but, or walking around, like him walking upstairs, his own footsteps weren't nearly as loud as the spider's footsteps. So that's a little, I don't understand that at all, but it was just a way for the director to indicate that his audio, his senses are improving or whatever. But honestly, although I did see it twice and plan to probably watch it more often, I don't think unless I come across the Blu-ray for $5 or less at some point, I don't think it's something I need on Blu-ray. Definitely don't regret paying $10 for it on digital. Although when I did, I can see myself definitely watching it again, but one thing I will say is, having seen it twice, the second time I'm like, you know what, because of its And I call this movie slow, and not to demean it or anything, or to trash on it, but because of its slow nature, and maybe just dealing with him, the wife, and the daughter, and maybe a whole not all that much necessarily going on. Perhaps the rewatch value of this movie is maybe not on the highest side. Maybe it's the rewatch value is there's allergy, like my eyes are watering because of allergies this time of year, just pollen or whatever's in the frickin' air or whatever, in case you're wondering what's going on. But yeah, perhaps not the greatest rewatch value in this film. But what I found watching it a second time is, although maybe not anything that's particularly amazing that is necessarily happening at all times, it's still even the second viewing, it'll be interesting to see how it is on the third. But even the second viewing, I found myself engaged the whole time, and even if you know what's coming or whatever and stuff. But I do feel like perhaps maybe it's 15 minutes too long, or perhaps there could have been maybe a little more going on for repeat, to be more enjoyable for repeat viewings. But he did, or they did, what they wanted to do, and I certainly think it's one of the better movies I've seen in a while. And I won't spoil stuff. I won't spoil this and that. Obviously, this werewolf versus werewolf kind of situation, and stuff going on. And one thing I will say, heading towards closing of this review, is that it is because of their strong. It is a sad kind of a Wolfman movie, because the bond between the father and the daughter was so strong. It's really sad to see as the father deteriorates, that that bond slowly fade away. And it's a very kind of a somber movie as a result. But I guess I might as well just spoil this aspect. You probably tell, maybe without me saying it or not, but I might as well just say it. Obviously, the saving grace of the movie is as the bond between the father and the daughter kind of fades away, like the mom has to step in, obviously. So by the end of the film, there's the father, or the daughter and the mother are definitely, the bond between them is definitely stronger than it was before the movie started. So it's kind of one of those situations. And it's kind of interesting. You may know that a lot of the TV and movies as of late, in the last, it's better part of the last decade, have all been kind of trashing on men, and catapulting women into the the forefront of being even macho, or the better, or the more agreeable sex or whatever. And this guy's Invisible Man from 2020 or whatever certainly kind of goes along those lines, with like the stalker, asshole, crazy boyfriend or whatever, billionaire, inventor. Or I can't remember if the guy invented the Invisible Man thing or whatever. But it's interesting how this movie kind of is the same thing, although the Wolfman is the dad who becomes the Wolfman. He never really, he's kind of taken, it's not like it's his choice to become whatever he becomes, and even when he does, he's not necessarily the bad guy. So in a way, you can kind of say that maybe this movie is like an anti-man movie in a way, because look at this man couldn't beat the werewolf virus, and kind of a thing. It's not as bad as like Invisible Man, from 2020 or whatever, where it's just a deliberate asshole guy. Like this guy has, he ran across something, and he's got something in his blood which he is a victim to, so it's not like his own choice what he becomes. But what's interesting about this movie is he's able to, I guess maybe it's not so much of a man-hating movie, because this might be a little bit of a spoiler, but even with this influence of this virus or whatever, he's still able to not be a horrible guy, and so maybe it is kind of a positive, maybe a man positive movie, because he's still manages to fight this this carnal wolf instinct, which is in his blood now, and still remain as best as he can a protector, which is the interesting aspect of this movie. So And yeah, people might want to say, they want to see something like Jack Nicholson running around and ripping people up. But, we've seen that. In the movie's defense, we've seen that before. So much like with this guy's Invisible Man from 2020, that was his take on that story. This movie is his take on the Wolfman. So I've got no problem with that. Like I say, we don't have to do the same thing over and over and over, especially when so many werewolf movies have been done before. So I definitely enjoyed and appreciated this guy's take on Wolfman. I liked the beautiful environment and it takes place in. Of course, the majority of it's in the house, of course, but still, anytime there's an exterior, especially if it's in the day, it's just lush and beautiful woodage right up my alley and stuff. I can go as high as probably even higher than 3 stars. I can go. Let's go. This will be kind of goofy. We'll go 3 1/4 stars out of 4 stars for Wolfman. I think that it's on the whole, it's a very well crafted movie. Maybe not the best rewatch value found within this movie, but that doesn't make it a bad movie. It's just maybe, definitely, movies that I like, I definitely, it's obviously, it's nice to have a higher rewatchability if you plan to rewatch a movie. But anyway, if you can see this for free or for cheap, maybe it'll end up on Prime, not in someday in the not too distant future, maybe by the time this video is published, who the hell knows. But if you can see this and you like Wolfman movies and stuff, you could do worse. I mean, I can't remember what the Wolfman from Anthony Hopkins Wolfman was like. That was more of the traditional, and this is more of a different kind of a take on Wolfman, which I thought was relatively good. So I guess that pretty much does it for my review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks so much for watching. And as always, we'll catch you on the next video.